Well, I think that they need to focus on what's new in the industry to stay ahead of the competition is one thing. I think also, there are many companies today out there that are still really quite primitive in the way that they run their warehouse operations. They run their operations, and some of them quite large actually, in a completely manual environment. And this introduces tremendous risk into their business. And it also introduces like tribal knowledge leaving. If you have a manual process, there's a lot of, key individuals that have been there many years in those companies that if they were to leave, then, or retire or something basic like that, you've lost all that knowledge and, it interrupts your business and smooth operation of your business. And downstream from that, it affects your customer base. By enhancing your operation with technology, you have much more accurate processes and workflows within your organization.
Hello, I'm Imrah Chizuka, Director of Digital Adoption at SFL. I'll be your host today on SFL's podcast. In this episode, we'll be discussing transformational warehousing. We'll take a deep dive into Wisetech Global's warehousing solutions, Microlistics and CargoWise One, and delve into how the combined solution leads the way to future-proof warehousing operations. My guest today is Martin Hespeler, VP Sales Americas for Microlistics, a Wisetech global group that has been supporting customers in the areas of warehouse and transportation logistics, supply chain management, demand planning, and inventory management for the past 30 years. Martin's experience includes working for some of the largest global logistics software providers, many of which are recognized as market leaders. Hi, Martin. Thank you so much for joining me today. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Imrah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I appreciate your inviting us to your podcast today.
My pleasure. Thank you again for being on it and agreeing to be our guest. I thought I'd start a little bit with a backstory on how you came to be in the field of logistics and warehousing. You've had an illustrious career and worked with many global logistics software providers. What's that evolution been like?
Well, thank you for asking. We started over 30 years ago. I worked for a company that was an IBM business partner. And over the years, that evolved from retail point of sales and back of the house inventory management to TMS solutions, warehousing solutions, demand planning and forecasting type solutions. And we've seen many, many changes over those 30 years in this evolution from the state of technology being very basic to some of the most complex and sophisticated systems today.
That's right. Warehousing has evolved tremendously over the last few years in particular. As a consultative professional, what do you consider to be the best part of evolution of warehousing operations and software?
Well, I think it's a lot of things, but I think what's interesting is that this particular space of supply chain continues to evolve and improve over the years with new technologies and new investments into those technologies. That certainly, one, streamlines all the processes for the supply chain, and it also makes it possible to adjust to the market and the global economy as it changes.
Thank you for that. Wistech has been on a very interesting journey with its suite of warehousing software as well. Would you mind expanding a bit on the different types of solutions Wistech offers and how they can be used either independently or as a combined solution to produce a platform of high productivity for its clients?
Well, I'm sure. Well, let's start back in 2018 when Wistech acquired Microlistics as a software platform for warehousing. At that time, there were originally, Wistech had two warehousing solutions. and they were predominantly focused on the freight forwarding side of the global economy and where that fits in, cross-border, sea and air freight, things of that nature. And then, where countries were receiving goods, they would use those warehouse management solutions to receive goods and so on. In 2018, when Microlistics was purchased and acquired, they received their third suite now for warehousing solutions. And all three of them are very robust in their functionality and very functional for their areas of market focus. And as these years have gone by since 2018, more and more of those, best-in-class functional components of the applications have, been merged together and are very deep from a value proposition for all customers, whether they're standalone businesses in multiple different verticals, or they're 3PLs, 4PLs, 5PLs, or they're freight forwarders.
Okay, fantastic. It's really great to see how the solution has come together to be able to cater to a spectrum of different use cases and logistics service providers. 2021 and 2022 saw multiple disruptions to supply chain operations. I think just apart from COVID, there's been a lot of manufacturing issues, a global shortage of semiconductor chips, geopolitical conflicts, inflation, a recession, weather events, and so many other issues. So how does warehousing platform from Wisetech provide the framework and tools to create actionable strategy that can help circumvent these issues as much as possible?
That's a good question. I believe as a whole, the solutions from Wisetech provide the logistics organization the visibility into their operations so that they can react in a timely manner to some of those market fluctuations or, global conditions that you mentioned. The visibility is key, and having that data and access to it in a real-time fashion is very important so that you can make adjustments within your business so that you can fulfill your obligations to your customers as a logistics company, or as like I said, a retailer or some other vertical manufacturer or wholesaler.
And through CargoWise and Microlistics, Wisetech has also released a warehouse management suite that was designed to empower clients through a fully managed cloud offering and consumer-grade user interface for touchscreen Android RF devices, streamlined integration of hardware automation as well. Could you tell me a little bit about how successful this has been and the impact it has had on the businesses of the clients that use it?
Sure. Well, the transition from the on-prem to cloud solutions has been happening over the last 10 to 15 years. And predominantly in the last 10 years, there's been a, let's say, race to SaaS, software as a service, and cloud-hosted solutions by many companies. The benefits of this type of architecture and setting up your tech stack in that manner for the logistics company or the individual business owner is that you don't have to incur any upfront large infrastructure costs. You're also, in many cases, setting a much more rigid environment where, you're mitigating some risk from down systems or hacking. So to go to the cloud has been very popular for the Wisetech global customers. They've been going in that direction for many, many years. And Microlistics has adopted that strategy as well over the last 5 years. And I would say that 95+% of our clients now are in the cloud environment as well.
That's right. I think cloud, like you've rightly said, it provides very fast and smooth implementation as well. and also enables ongoing optimization and future proofing of warehouse enhancements, which I think your customers and all of the clients using Wisetech's combined warehousing solution are definitely benefiting a lot from. Just
Yeah,
leading into my, sorry.
I would agree with that. That's a very accurate statement. Those are some of the key benefits that they receive by going down this path with Wisetech and Microlistics.
That's right. Thank you. And I think also maybe one of the biggest challenges that I've seen to future-proofing any aspect of business, is taking a proactive approach to change. There's a lot of resistance always also from internal teams. So what steps do you believe logistics leaders need to employ in order to bring about this change and an adoption of sophisticated warehouse solutions?
Well, I think that they need to focus on what's new in the industry to stay ahead of the competition is one thing. I think also, there are many companies today out there that are still really quite primitive in the way that they run their warehouse operations. They run their operations, and some of them quite large actually, in a completely manual environment. And this introduces tremendous risk into their business. And it also introduces like tribal knowledge leaving. If you have a manual process, there's a lot of, key individuals that have been there many years in those companies that if they were to leave, then, or retire or something basic like that, you've lost all that knowledge and, it interrupts your business and smooth operation of your business. And downstream from that, it affects your customer base. By enhancing your operation with technology, you have much more accurate processes and workflows within your organization. And inherently, that drives up your accuracy with fulfillment of orders and keeps your customer base satisfied, much more satisfied.
That's right. And, another area I've been noticing as well in just my reading and literature, just being on social media and LinkedIn posts is all the time I see posts about how leaders are always confronted with new and updated features to consider for an organization's warehouse. And perhaps that might sometimes make them reluctant to take a step forward to future-proof their warehouse because to a very large extent, they think that if they're going to get on a solution right now, there's going to be something new and better in a couple of months. So why take the plunge? What advice would you give them, and how would you sort of help them navigate this conundrum?
Well, I would recommend that they look at the legacy of that technology provider for their business. In the case of Wisetech Global and Microlistics, we've spent and do, as can be read in our annual report, we spend a tremendous amount of money of staying current with the future technologies. So there's every year a tremendous amount of effort and spend placed into new feature functionality based on what the market demands are and what, may be happening in that global economy that we need to be able to react to with our tech stack and our software. And that's how we stay current. And that's what should actually have that logistics owner or that organization that's looking to enhance their technology. They should look at companies that are continually enhancing their product and are on the leading edge of the functionality required to support the business, because most large organizations will continue to improve the software applications with enhancements, with new releases every single year.
So that new and shiny object is going to be anyway incorporated into the product, and that shouldn't be a reason why they stall on implementing, isn't it?
That's correct. They should really start right away as soon as they can and form a partnership with their technology provider. This way, all the feature enhancements and new functionality can be part of their portfolio and their own business, and that'll support any of those market fluctuations and changes in the economy or in the logistics business.
Right. So we're in the beginning of 2023. So I'm just going to segue a little bit into, a lot of new technology has been emerging in the warehouse space. What are you most excited for with regard to warehousing technology and automation in warehousing?
I think there's a few areas that I would look at. I like the warehouse automation and the direction that that's going. Some of that, from a basic perspective, warehouse control systems, things like that. More advanced, the robotics that are being introduced into the warehouse in support of e-commerce and various other things. I think from a logistics business, it's interesting to see how drones will play into this equation over time for fulfillment purposes. And then, of course, there's the business intelligence and analytics components that really provide the visibility, as I said earlier, to the business owner and the operator and stakeholders to be very sort of in touch with their business and the changes so they can react in a timely manner. I think, AI is also on the edge of coming into the warehouse. In some cases, people are talking about it already. And I think that's a pretty exciting area as well.
Just to touch a little bit on robotics in warehousing, I was watching a small snippet online of a robot replacing a human inside a warehousing facility. Do you think that's a lot like far out in the future, or we're going to see that become a reality pretty soon?
I think that's a good question. I think some of that's already here. I think that's already being utilized by a percentage of the market. I think the adoption, it's still early adopter stage in this evolution of robotics in the warehouse, but I believe the adoption rate is increasing quickly. And that has a lot to do with what's going on in the labor market today and the shortages and the fluctuations there. So I do believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, you will see much more automation and robotics within the four walls of the warehouse.
That's really exciting. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I do too.
And finally, I think we've had a lovely conversation. So I'm just going to wrap up a little bit on touching on your 30 years of expertise in the logistics field. So as a consultant and someone who's worked in this space for 30 years, what do you think logistics businesses need to do or equip themselves with to be agile in the face of any unpredictability in the future?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that stay in front of the technology, really stay connected to, the popular trade magazines with regard to distribution and logistics and global logistics. I would say make sure that you do look into going to some of the seminars and trade shows that are happening around the world and expos, because that's where the leading edge of technology is. And it can provide some insight to you as an owner or operator as to how you can stay ahead of any types of variables in the global economy and stay ahead of your competition.
Okay. Thank you so much, Martin, for coming again and being a guest on our podcast. It was a pleasure having this discussion with you.
My pleasure as well. Thank you, Imrah.
My pleasure. Thank you for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.